Now I know we haven't yet gotten into the entire Windows desktop and how to set up all the settings for Windows itself, but since we're talking about the mouse, and we've specifically talked about how frustrating it can be if you can't double-click fast enough, I do want to talk about how to change your mouse settings. For this particular section, just kind of follow along, and I promise that in a later chapter we'll go into more detail about exactly what it is we're doing here. For now, I just want to show you what the options are. So I want you to move down to your Start button, which is on the lower left side of the screen, and give that a click. If you're on Windows Vista or Windows 7, simply type the word mouse. If you're on Windows XP, you'll move to the right side, click Control Panel, and then click Mouse Settings. I'll go ahead and press Enter to select the mouse, and what you will see is that you get a dialog box, or a window. The exact options that you see here will depend on the brand, make, and model of the mouse that you have. For example, a trackball may have different settings in a graphics tablet. But some of the basics will still be the same, so let's take a look at what those are. If you happen to be left-handed and you use the mouse on the other side of the keyboard, usually on the left side, then you may want to change the primary key. We always talk about a left click as selecting. But if you're left-handed and using the mouse with your left hand, then your primary key would actually be the one for your index finger, which would be the right mouse button. Now I know that can be confusing, but if you look at the little picture here in the dialog box, right now the primary button is the left button on the mouse. If I click this checkbox, it changes the primary to the right button. Now here's the tricky part. Once you check this box, if you then try to left click to turn it off, it's not going to work because it's already changed the button. So I actually have to right click, which is the same as my primary click, to turn it off. In other words, if you try to turn this feature off and you can't, try using the other button on your mouse. Probably the most important thing that we can change with these particular settings, though, is our double click speed. It can be very frustrating if you're trying to double click and you've practiced and you're trying your hardest and you just can't do it fast enough, because you end up with that click, pause, click instead of what should be a double click. Here's how you test it. You move over this little picture, and it might be a folder, it might be a couple of different things, again depending on your mouse and your operating system. But if you double click, and it changes, in this case my folder opens and closes as I double click, that means your double click speed is set to OK. Now I'm going to show you if I move this slider by clicking and dragging it all the way to fast. I'm a pretty quick double clicker, so that still works for me. But if I wasn't, and if I tried to do click, click, you can see that doesn't do it. However, if I move this all the way to the left, and then I do click, click, that actually is slow enough that click, click is considered a double click. This is something that you really need to play with. Usually you'll start off with it a little bit in the middle. But if you find that you're not able to double click fast enough, move it over to the slower side. If you find that what you're trying to do is click, pause, click, but Windows still interprets it as a double click, then you would move it farther to the right. I'm not going to go over all of these options, but I did want to show you changing the primary button as well as the double click speed. At the top, we also have a tab for pointers. You can see that the very first one is called Normal Select, and this is the white arrow we're used to seeing very often as we work with Windows. I don't recommend that you change this. Now you can get very creative and you can put little horses and snakes and all kinds of different things as your pointer, but an arrow is very distinct. You know where the point of that arrow is, so I don't recommend that you change that. If you want to change one, then you might consider changing the busy icon. For this particular version of Windows, it's that little spinning donut that we've talked about. For older versions, it may just be the hourglass that flips up and down. In order to change a cursor, you select the type of cursor you want, then you click on the Browse button. This will bring up your cursors folder, and you can scroll through and find any cursor that you would like to use. The primary difference is the size. You have small, medium, and large, and it also can be coloration differences, for example, a black arrow instead of a white arrow. Some people need to change these simply because they have a hard time seeing a certain cursor. Some of them are also animated, and you can choose one that's kind of fun, like a horse that's running or a snake that's kind of hissing at you, those kinds of things. By selecting it and then opening it, you can adjust it. Again, a little bit beyond what we want to do here, so I'm going to click Cancel to get out of that, and just let you know that you can change cursors if that's something you want to do. The next tab that we have are pointer options. Now this is where we get into how fast that pointer moves. If it moves too fast and you're always overshooting what you're looking for, you can come in and you can make it a little bit slower so that the pointer actually moves slower across the screen. There also may be a checkbox called Snap To, so that when a window opens, the pointer will automatically move to the default button. In this box, for example, it would have automatically moved down over the OK button. That simply means that you don't have to move your mouse quite as much because you'll usually be selecting the default button. If you like to see your mouse a little bit better, you can display pointer trails, and now I will show you how that looks on the screen. It kind of has an interesting effect, but I personally think it gets to be a little bit annoying, so I don't turn that one on. Hiding the pointer while typing will simply allow you to get it out of the way. Again, I don't like that either because sometimes I lose my cursor if it disappears, so I just like to keep it on the screen. I'm going to turn that off. And the last option that I do like is show the location of the pointer when I press the Control key. So let me check that and show you how this works as well. If I ever lose my cursor on the screen, and I don't really want to have to move my mouse in order to try to see it, I can use this feature. With it, if I press the Control key on my keyboard, I can more easily see the cursor location because doing so puts a little target around it. So that makes it easier to find. I'm going to leave that enabled for now. And I'm going to go up and talk about the last tab that we need to, which is the wheel. Now obviously you won't have a wheel tab unless you have a wheel on your mouse. But if you do, this adjusts how much it scrolls up and down when you roll it forward and backwards, either a certain number of lines at a time, or you can have it move an entire screen at a time. And if you have the tilt wheel, the same thing happens. You can move a certain number of characters left and right. So this is just adjusting kind of how sensitive the scroll and tilt wheel are. Buttons, pointers, pointer options in the wheel are something that you probably want to come in and take a look at. If you're new at using the mouse, you may set it a certain way when you begin, but then as you get more proficient, you might want to come in and change it a little bit. Out of all of these, probably the most important, I think, is setting up that double-click speed, because I know that new mouse users can become very frustrated trying to double-click when it's set too fast. When you're all finished, you simply click OK, and all of those new mouse settings will be ready for you.